Yo, YouTube, what up? How's it going out there? I hope you're all okay. Hope you're rocking out today. Alright, well, let's see. I had no idea what I was going to talk about as soon as I started this camera, but something straight off the top of my head, let's do it. So, you hear me talk about that I'm from the Bronx, and you know, if you're not from New York City and you're thinking about visiting New York City, I gotta tell you, there's not many cool places for you to visit in the Bronx. It's not very touristy. If you're into like old architecture, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a couple of cool spots you could check out. We just recently got a mall. Before, like, maybe 5 years ago, before then, the word mall was completely foreign to us. But we got a pretty cool mall. It's called Bay Plaza. It's in the Co-op City area of the Bronx. We have a beach, Orchard Beach. It's not amazing. It's a beach. And it's been known to be kind of dirty, but if you're Latino and you like live Latin music, we get some pretty cool performances on Sundays during the summertime. A lot of well-known salsa bands and stuff like that perform there. Let's see. Seafood. If you love seafood, I'm gonna recommend that you go to City Island. If you visit New York and you want a good seafood experience, visit City Island. It's like, the island is probably like 3 miles long, and the whole island is pretty much filled up with seafood restaurants. It's amazing. I used to work at a restaurant in City Island, and it was very, very popular. So popular that let's see, J-Lo has eaten there. The Kardashians, they celebrated one of their birthdays there. Let's see, one time, almost like once a week, freaking Fat Joe used to come and dine there. One time we had Luis Guzman. That guy's hilarious. Have you ever seen the movie Waiting? He's been in tons of movies. I can't list them all, but I think he was even in Scarface. I'm not too sure. Luis Guzman. That guy is a native New Yorker, and I hear nowadays he's living in Vermont. That's a weird place to move to if you're in the film industry. I don't know. But I really wanted to meet this guy, but unfortunately, when after he was done with his meal, I was gonna like approach him and say, "Yo, what's up, dude? I'm a huge fan and whatnot." But my boss showed up, and this guy, man, he hogged up all his time, man. But anyway, City Island, I really recommend for seafood. If you're going for like quick fast food stuff, at the end of the island, there's Tony's and Johnny's. Those two spots are really good for like fast food, just quick, like fried shrimp and fried fish and French fries. Those places are really cool. Funny thing about those two places is that most people that are from the Bronx, I'm not too sure about every other borough, but most people that are from the Bronx, they always go out to City Island during the summer. And most people, their families are pretty much either Johnny's or Tony's. Like, there's no in between. There's no like, you know, well, if you roll out to City Island and you plan to go have some seafood, there's no like you rolling out with your family and friends and like, yo, I'm gonna go to Tony's. No, we're going to Johnny's. I'm like, all right, you go there, I go here, and we'll meet up afterwards. No, that's probably how it would be like if you went with a friend and they only rock with Johnny's and your family only rocks, their family only rocks with Tony's or whatever. But if you want a nice dining in experience where you're gonna have like a lobster, king crab legs and stuff, you're gonna ball out, I really recommend Seashore. Like, that place is awesome. Oh man, I went there recently and I must have racked up a bill for myself alone of about like $70. I had coconut shrimp and king crab legs. That thing was amazing. Really recommend it. Alright, so I told you about the mall in Co-op City, Bay Plaza, which, by the way, Impractical Jokers just recently filmed there. I wish I was there for that. Those guys are awesome. Let's see. Some cool things that I want to mention that growing up in New York City, my mom has always taken me to this park called Poe Park in the Fordham Road, Grand Concourse area of the Bronx. Poe Park. I didn't learn till like later on that the weird tiny house that's on that property is actually of historic significance. Edgar Allan Poe, that's his house. It's crazy. I don't know if that was like some sort of vacation house or like if that was his house that he wrote his novels at or whatever, but that's pretty interesting. And then maybe about a mile away from there, my mom always used to take me to this one theater called the Paradise Lowe's Theater. I really recommend you do a Google image search on the Paradise Lowe's Theater. I didn't know at the time what the significance of that place was or if it was important at all, but later on in college when I went to study theater, I learned that the Paradise Lowe's Theater is one of the very few theater palaces or movie palaces still standing. Let me tell you what that is if you don't know what it is. A theater palace is a movie theater or a live theater that would double as a movie theater, as a cinema, when there are no theater productions going on. And these places were typically owned by the big movie studios. So Paramount was one of them. Who knows? I don't quite remember what the other theater I don't quite remember what other movie companies there were at the time, but yeah, the Lowe's Paradise Theater, Lowe's Paradise Theater. There's also one called the Paramount. But yeah, look these things up. If you have a theater like this in your town, I know I've been to one in Westchester County, I think in Larchmont. They had a pretty nice one. It was pretty weird though, because when I went to go to this theater, there was like a screen dropped down in front of a stage, and I asked the person at the ticket booth, "Is this like a theater palace?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know." But the way that you can tell if your local cinema is a theater palace is it's gonna be super old. There's gonna be a huge marquee out the front the front of the establishment. Then when you go, there's gonna be an actual like box office, like a little ticket booth, and after that, when just pay attention to like the walls, if they are ornate, unlike the AMC theaters nowadays and all the other popular theaters nowadays. They just basically have plain black, you know, red walls or whatever. But Theater Palaces are phenomenal. They are amazing. Like once you step foot in the theater room, you're gonna notice that the walls are very ornate. They have a lot of decorations. A lot of times the ceilings would be very decorative. It's just beautiful. Like, it's amazing. Too bad that those things don't really. Too bad that those things, they really required a lot of upkeep and restoration after some time, which a lot of people weren't down to accommodate those restorations, you know, that could be very pricey. But yeah, they used to go all out on these theaters. Let's see. Another thing. Oh, Parkchester. This is not so much of a touristy type of thing, but for those of you that live in the Bronx, Parkchester, it's along the 6 train line by Castle Hill, around there. Parkchester has some crazy history. It was built maybe about 90 years ago by the guy that owned the MetLife building in Manhattan. Parkchester was built in times when we were, as Americans, were fearing nuclear strikes and stuff like that. So Parkchester actually has a whole like underground city. There's like a movie theater down there, a hospital, a morgue, a bowling alley. There's tons of things down there, and all the buildings. This is about 120 acres of land and about 111 buildings, and they're all connected underground. It's pretty interesting. Not many people know this. I think only probably the security people that work there only know this. It's very trivial, but it's a really cool fun fact. Another cool fun fact is that that same construction is replicated. I'm not too sure which came first, but it was replicated in Manhattan, in Lower Manhattan, and the place is called Stuytown. Maybe that's the newer name for it. I think it's called Stuyvesant Town, but Stuytown or whatever. The buildings look identical. These are really cool buildings. Like, funny thing is that I once bought something off some guy on Craigslist in Stuytown, and when I showed up to his place, he brought me into his apartment, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I grew up in Parkchester for some time in my life, and when I went up to this dude's apartment in Stuytown, like, the apartment was just identical. It was crazy. And then, so I'm like, all right, here, you know, I'm here for the speakers or whatever. He says, oh yeah, we got to go downstairs into the storage. I'm like, what? You guys got storage? He's like, yeah, everybody here has storage. So turns out that they have the same setup over there in Stuytown as Parkchester did, but the thing about Parkchester is that they cut it off. They never decided to make it into storage or anything. They just cut it off. They locked everything off because I bet probably in the 70s and 60s or whatever. Kids are going down there smoking weed and drinking or whatever. Who knows? Fun fact also, I was probably one of very few minorities that moved into Parkchester in the early 90s. And I hear, like, shortly before I moved there, I heard that any colored person that would get off the train or a bus in the area and they went walking around in the area, they were stopped by security, and they were asked where they going, and then security would escort them. Like, that's so racist, like, crazy. Yep. My family was one of the first few minorities to move there to Parkchester. Oh, also Morris Park, I learned later on, is the neighboring town on the other side of the train tracks. Morris Park has some sort of historical significance. As for what I hear, this all used to be farmland back in the day, and Morris Park was actually like a raceway for dudes racing their horses. straight down the avenue. It wasn't like a circular track or anything, but it was just like a straight avenue down, and they used to race horses there. That's pretty cool, right? Let's see. So yeah, that guy in Stuytown, he went down to his storage and he gave me his stuff. Can't think of anything else at the moment. But yeah, like so many great people, great talent came from the Bronx, New York, and that's why so many of us are so proud to be from the Bronx and tell people that we're from the Bronx. The Bronx is the birthplace of hip hop. They actually, as for what I understand, hip hop was a mix between like Jamaican culture where they just go out in the street and they blast music, and there's always an MC. There's always the selector, that's the actual DJ, and then the DJ would be the MC in hip-hop culture, the master of ceremonies, the guy that's always on the mic. And so it was a cross between that and then like just dudes messing around with records and playing around with break beats from like James Brown records and stuff like that. So that's pretty much where that came from. Also, breakdancing came out of the whole mixing and splicing of the break beats that I was just talking about. There's tons of information out there on YouTube about break beats and the origin of hip-hop. I went to the same high school as Martin Scorsese and Regis Philbin. Tracy Morgan, he's also from the Bronx. He went to Clinton High School. Let's see. The most notable right now, Cardi B, she's from the Bronx. Funny thing is that I have a family member that works in a school, in a middle school, and Cardi B actually went to that middle school, and so I was able to see Cardi B's yearbook picture from middle school. That was pretty funny. She's got a funny name, but I've never even heard of that name in Dominican in the Dominican family. But sometimes Dominicans have crazy names. Let's see, who else is from the Bronx? I'm sure there's some rappers I can't think of. I think A Boogie with a hoodie. A Boogie with a hoodie. I think he's from the Bronx. I'm not too, as a dude from the Bronx, I'm not really too into hip hop culture so much. And I gotta tell you why. This is nuts. Um, in hip hop culture, you get into the fashion, and then you start rocking this fashion to school and stuff, and then sadly, there's kids in school that they're not as fortunate to have these, to have parents that will buy them this stuff, and it's crazy that, like, so many times in middle school, I was bullied for my clothes, and some dude tried to steal my jacket, and I got jumped by like probably 15, 20 kids. It's just ridiculous. Let's see. Sneakers, they steal sneakers. Luckily, nobody has ever stolen anything from me. I've always stood up for myself, but it's just something crazy to have to go through, and I bet that this is not something that's only happening in the Bronx, you know. So I just kind of felt that in hip hop culture, there's no kind of like brotherhood, friendship, loyalty, or any of that. But when I started getting into rock music, I was always into rock music. When I got cable, I was into everything. When I really got into rock music, and I started switching up my style of dress, whatever, I didn't have to deal with those people anymore. So, instead, this is kind of stupid. This is a stupid way of thinking, but instead, around the time that I was like in middle school and stuff, I the around that time there was the big Columbine shooting incident, and then the people in my school started looking at the very few of us that were into this, the rock. In their minds, everybody's gothic. Everybody who listens to any type of rock band is gothic. Stupid. But I've always been into like every rock band. I really loved Manson, Green Day, Nirvana. I was really big into these bands. But when the whole like Columbine shooting happened, they started looking at us like, "Oh, you one of them?" Like, "Oh, let's be careful with this guy. Like, he might shoot up the school or whatever." And I'm like, these people. I was kind of glad that they were just like looking at us like, "Yo, we should stay away from them." But like, I mean, that must be pretty scary to think that there could be a shooting in the school. Like,